In New York today, we learned that New York prosecutors told Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan, that's New York State Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan, who's overseeing the Donald Trump election interference case, which is sadly often referred to as a hush money case, has asked to press pause on Donald's sentencing to allow for more debate on the legal issues at play. The judge has yet to decide whether or not to delay the sentencing further or throw the case out entirely now that Donald Trump will be once again taking up residence in the White House. Just to be very clear here, although Donald's lawyers have asked for the case to be thrown out, that is not what Bragg is asking. He is asking to postpone sentencing until after Donald's term is up in 2030, which seems ill-advised to me. As we also know, Jack Smith is resigning, and all related federal cases that have been overseen by him are going to be concluding without trial, without evidentiary hearings, and without any justice whatsoever for the American people and to those who suffered the most on January 6th and to those who may or may not have been harmed by the Donald's theft of classified information. So let's have a little history here. Again, this is often referred to, almost exclusively referred to, as a hush money case. It is an election interference case. Donald was convicted in May of this year for falsifying business records to cover up a $130,000 payment that was made by his former lawyer, Michael Cohen. Cohen paid the money to porn actor Stormy Daniels in exchange for her silence in advance of the 2016 election about a sexual encounter she said she had with Donald when his wife was at home with their 3-month-old baby. What's missing here, again, is not that this was a hush money case to keep Daniels quiet to avoid embarrassing Donald's family. He does not care about such things. It was to make sure that Daniel's story would not negatively impact Donald's election bid. He was found guilty by a jury of his peers on all 34 felony counts having to do with business fraud in connection with these payments. He's the first former U.S. president to be convicted, and he is certainly the first convicted felon to be elected to the presidency of the United States. Good job, everybody. So what's the point, right? Why go through all of this if it's all just going to get thrown out? Especially since he has already been convicted. It's not like they're at the beginning of the trial as they were for the January 6th and classified documents cases. Remember that Michael Cohen testified about this, and he was already convicted on similar charges. He was convicted for helping Donald carry out this conspiracy and helping interfere with the 2016 election. Watch this clip.
Former lawyer Michael Cohen has testified in the former president's criminal trial in New York. He told jurors about the decade he spent working for Trump as his self-described fixer. Cohen paid adult film star Stormy Daniels $130,000 just before the 2016 election in exchange for her silence about an alleged sexual encounter with Trump. Prosecutors say the checks Cohen received to reimburse him were falsely classified as legal payments.
This trial, led by prosecutor Alvin Bragg, lasted 7 weeks. 20 witnesses were brought in to illustrate to the jurors how there was a pattern of payoffs to keep negative stories about Donald out of the public eye before the election, often known as the catch and kill scheme. Donald was deeply concerned that such stories, especially the story that would have been told by Stormy Daniels, was going to impact his campaign in 2016. Back in May, Again, district attorney, I refer to him as prosecutor, but district attorney Alvin Bragg acknowledged the historic nature of the conviction and said that while Donald is a defendant, quote, unlike any other in American history, unquote, the verdict was reached in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors by following the facts and the law and doing so without fear or favor. Now, we may forget this, but Donald has a history of threatening anybody who goes up against him. That includes judges, that includes clerks, that includes prosecutors and witnesses and jurors. So it would have been completely reasonable for jurors in this case to be concerned for their safety. We know that some of Donald's supporters tried to dox the jurors in this case, and they posted violent threats after his conviction. On social media and web forums, users called for jurors, judges, and prosecutors to be killed after Donald was found guilty on 34 counts. So, was all of this for nothing? Did these 12 jurors and alternates do their civic duty and potentially risk their lives for nothing? Like, why is it that the conclusion they reached is going to be dismissed out of hand? It seems utterly absurd. Now, of course, we have to factor in the possibility that the Supreme Court's utterly egregious and anti-democratic decision in the immunity ruling, which essentially gave Donald a complete immunity for any quote unquote official acts, may indeed be playing a factor in this decision by Bragg. So here's a clip of what the Supreme Court actually declared back in July.
In one of its most anticipated rulings of the year, the Supreme Court declared that former President Donald Trump is immune from criminal prosecution for any so-called official act taken as president, but not unofficial ones taken as a candidate. The 6-3 ruling was split along ideological lines, and it will most likely delay Trump's federal election subversion trial until after the November election.
Okay, so the question is, does that extend infinitely into the past and infinitely into the future? Because most of the charges on which Donald was found guilty were committed by him before he entered the White House in January 2017. So what are we even talking about here? And again, other people served time for committing similar crimes for the benefit of Donald Trump. The first sacrificial convict, I should say, was Alan Weisselberg, who has been part of the Trump organization since the early 70s.
Breaking news. The former Trump Organization CFO has been sentenced to 5 months in jail for perjury. Alan Weisselberg pleaded guilty to lying under oath while testifying in the civil fraud trial against former President Donald Trump.
It was a very quick sentencing hearing, 5 months in jail for Alan Weisselberg, who had been loyal to Donald Trump and his family for more than 50 years. And for a second time, that loyalty is costing him his freedom. As soon as the judge imposed the sentence, Weisselberg declined to make a statement. He was immediately handcuffed and led from the courtroom on his way to Rikers Island.
Again, I just want to make it clear that Alvin Bragg is not asking the judge to throw out the case entirely, although that is what Donald's lawyers want. That doesn't mean that Justice Merchan won't do that. What Bragg is asking for is that this essentially be put on hold until Donald is no longer in office. This does not sound like justice to me, but in his letter to the court, Bragg wrote, quote, "The people deeply respect the office of the president, are mindful of the demands and the obligations of the presidency, and acknowledge that defendant's inauguration will raise unprecedented legal questions. We also deeply respect the fundamental role of the jury in our constitutional system," unquote. Well, first of all, in this circumstance, both of those things cannot be true. You cannot respect the office of the president when the president is somebody who does not respect the office of the president. You cannot continue to give that person who holds that role the same extension of respect you would give to anybody else in that office when Donald Trump has done more than any person in American history to degrade and defile the office of the presidency. You cannot let him on the hook and with a straight face say you also deeply respect the fundamental role of the jury in our constitutional system. You just told the jury that they can fuck off. And just so we're clear about how little respect Donald Trump has for judges in the judiciary, he said this on a Truth Social post. Quote, the Democrats are trying to stack the courts with radical left judges on their way out the door. Republican senators need to show up and hold the line. No more judges confirmed before Inauguration Day, unquote. That's not how it's supposed to work. That is not how the system works. But Donald and Republicans like him only think that the system is fair when it is benefiting them to the detriment of the rest of us. Bragg's predecessor, Cyrus Vance Jr., whose office began investigating Donald's business activities and the underlying fraud during Donald's first term, said the following, quote, the truth of the matter is it's hard to see an easy path forward that isn't going to be very controversial, unquote. Well, as usual, those who are supposed to be on the right side of history once again choose the path of controversy that redounds to Donald Trump's benefit, again, to the detriment of us and to the rule of law. And I am so very, very tired of it. Hey, everybody. In case you weren't aware, I am spectacularly bad at self-promotion. So here it goes. Please subscribe to our channel and like and share our videos. Your support means so much to all of us. Thank you.